Hey, this is Kevin with Consumer Reports, and I'm going to do a disassembly video here on the new Ruger precision rifle. One of the first things you should always do is make sure that the rifle is on safe, which it is. That it's completely unloaded, nothing in the magazine removed, nothing in the chamber. To disassemble this rifle, one of the first things you're going to do is you'll fold the stock by pressing the button here, right there. You'll press it in and you'll fold the stock. It's a little bit cumbersome here one-handed, but I'll fold the stock into that position there. Once the stock is partially folded, you'll remove the bolt. To do that, you'll pull up on the bolt handle. You'll press the bolt stop lever on the opposite side right here. You'll press it at the rear, and you can just pull the bolt rearward out of the receiver. And the bolt here has got a shroud on the rear of it, and inside the shroud is this bolt disassembly tool. There's also the Allen wrench that's used for adjusting the trigger pull, which is right there. With the bolt removed, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to rotate the shroud and the piece here. You're going to rotate it to where that all lines up with the bottom of the bolt handle right there. You can see how all this lines up like that. Then you're going to go through and you'll actually just slide the shroud off and set it aside. Now, they provide a tool here for basically relieving some of the spring tension on the firing pin. So the first thing you'll do is remove this Allen wrench from the tool. Okay, you'll slide, let me get it positioned right. You'll take this tool and you'll slide it into those slots right there like that, and then you'll cam this tool over. Alright, when you cam it over, it basically relieves some of that compression on the spring, and then you'll rotate this firing pin assembly and slide it out of the bolt. Now, once you have that out, then you can remove the bolt handle out of the bolt itself. Now, a couple of things I want to point out. The bolt handle, if you're not 100% sure of the right orientation for reinstalling the bolt handle, these corners right here, these three corners here, have a certain radius on them. This bottom corner right here has a slightly different radius. It looks like a larger radius. And what I'm trying to point out is you won't be able to insert the bolt handle into the bolt any other way other than with the larger radius it clocked in that position like that. Now, with it disassembled, you can clean the bolt. You can do whatever actions you want to do there. You can also clean the firing pin. I would not recommend at all taking this tool off of the firing pin, because when you do, what you're going to find is that it's hard to go through and compress the spring here so that you can reinstall the firing pin assembly back into the bolt. When I first reassembled it, I actually did do that by accident, and the only way I was able to get the spring compressed again is I put the firing pin assembly in my vise, and I had the vise jaws adjusted to where this flat right here was sitting right on the edge of the vise jaws, and then I took the bolt handle and put it on the firing pin assembly like that, and then with it resting on the vise jaws, I had to take the bolt handle and press down to compress the spring to allow me to reinsert the tool there. Again, it's it was very difficult. I wasn't able to do it by myself without actually going over to the vise and just putting the jaws very lightly against that flat. After doing that, I was able to reassemble it. Now, something else I want to point out on the bolt handle itself is that on one side, I don't know if you can see here, there's a notch right there. And so when the bolt handle is inserted in the bolt itself, and then you put your firing pin assembly through there, I'm going to slide it through like this, and you'll rotate it around to where the ears right there need to nest into that notch in the bolt handle. So again, you're going to get these ears right here to be able to notch right in there, and you'll feel it when it's properly in there. If it's not properly in there, then you don't have it lined up correctly, and it may become an issue. All right. Now for reassembly of the bolt, you'll take the bolt here, you'll take the bolt handle, you'll slide it into the bolt like that, and you'll make sure that surface is flush there. Then you'll take your firing pin assembly, you'll slide it into the bolt through the bolt handle, and once you get it in position, then what you're going to do is you're going to rotate it 90 degrees until you feel it get seated. And I'm going to, hopefully this will show up on the video, I'm going to rotate it until there you could see that it actually seated down in the in that notch on the bolt handle. Now, just for reference, this lug down here right there should be in line with the bottom or the opposite edge of the bolt handle. Now, while it's in that position right there, you can then relieve the tool or flip the tool over. Okay, and so now that's the way that the assembly looks. You would go through and reinstall your bolt shroud. Alright, with the bolt shroud reinstalled, then I'll rotate it back to that position there, and there's actually a little notch that this part of the firing pin assembly actually went inside that notch right there. Once you've got it reinstalled, and you can go through and put your Allen wrench back inside the tool like so. You can put this the tool back in the rear of the bolt, and there you have it. You got reassembly of your bolt. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is to remove the lower receiver assembly, and there's two screws that you'll have to remove to do that. The first is here at the rear of the hinge right there, and so what I've got here is I think it's a 3/16 Allen bit right there, hex bit. I'll put it in there, and I'll have to loosen it up. Alright, I'll go ahead and loosen that screw and take it out. I'm using the Wheeler torque wrench here for doing that. You can use a regular Allen wrench. I had a bit that worked there. So I'm going to set the screw to the side. I'm going to go ahead and extend the stock fully again. I'm going to flip it over, and what I want to point out is that there's two more screws that you're going to see, one here and one there. The one that you're going to remove is going to be the forward screw. You're always going to leave the center screw in to keep the lower receiver assembly bolted together. So again, this is the screw that you're going to remove here, and I'll use the same Allen wrench. Alright, with that screw removed, I want to show that both screws are actually the same length, so it doesn't matter if you get them mixed up or not. So with it removed, we'll go ahead and set the rifle up on its rail. You can go through and just lift the lower receiver assembly directly off the rifle. Now, one thing you probably just noticed is that as I lifted it up and then flipped this lower receiver over, the safety, the AR style safety here, fell or just dropped out of position here within the lower receiver. Now, what I want to point out is that you can easily flip the safety around by removing the lower receiver to function on the opposite side of the rifle, just like that, and it's intended to be reversible. Now, I'll do a little bit more disassembly in a minute, but for cleaning purposes, that's all you've got to do for removing the lower receiver. With the lower receiver removed, you can see that the trigger group assembly here is attached to the upper receiver, and we're going to remove it in just a second. To remove it, you're going to remove this front bolt right here. I mean, I've already loosened it with a wrench, so I'll just go ahead and remove it by hand. You're also going to relieve the spring tension here by taking this pin right here and moving it around into this position right here in that slot, that J slot. So you're going to take it from the bottom of the J up to the top of the J, and what that does is that relieves some of the spring tension on this guide block here. Now, the next step is that the guide block actually goes into the upper receiver, so we're going to have to try to push that guide block up some so that we can then slide the housing here rearward and lift it out of the upper receiver. Now, to assist me with pushing the guide block here up into the housing of the trigger group right here, I'm going to use just a wooden pencil right here, and I'm going to press down there, and I don't know if you can see it, it slides up like that. So it's fully up in position. Now, with it up like that, if I slide it rearward and lift up on it slightly, then you can see how it comes up and your trigger group comes out of the rifle. Now, for the purposes of cleaning, I can't imagine anyone needing to go through the disassembly process any further than I've just shown you. And actually, there's really no need in my mind to go through and remove the trigger assembly right here. It's really a pretty simple effort to go through and to break down the rifle into these components here. And you know, Ruger also has an instructional video at their website which goes through this same process. I've watched the video several different times, and I highly recommend, if you're going to disassemble your rifle, to watch the video, but also to make sure that you read the instruction manual, because the instruction manual is going to include other safety related tips and warnings in the process of your disassembly. Before I reinstall the trigger assembly, I want to show you here that that's the screw right there that you are tightening or loosening to adjust the trigger pull weight. You can also see that there's a window right here which will allow you for putting some lubrication at that point in your trigger. The part that engages with the bottom of the bolt is right here, and Ruger's got plenty of grease on that also, and in that area right there. So if you were to lubricate them, that's where you would be doing it. Also, I want to show you is that the safety, you know, different people I've seen on the internet have talked about the safety being a little bit jiggly, and what I want to go up, turn it to the other side. What I want to point out is that the safety selector here, you know, when it's installed in the rifle, it's just kind of sitting in this location right here. Alright, so if you can see right there, it's just kind of sitting right there. And it's as you rotate the safety selector, that's what rotates. Let me see if I can do it here. That's what rotates this piece up here. So there's no spring-loaded detent that would be like in your lower receiver on an AR style rifle that actually pushes up against the safety selector to keep it from being jiggly. So I think that's just something that everyone's going to have to learn to live with, or I don't know, maybe there's something that could be potentially put in there to take out some of that free play. But I would caution anyone from adjusting the manufacturer's configuration of a safety. Now, to install this trigger assembly, what you're going to do is, it's actually going to fit like this right here on top of the gun. But what you've got is, you're going to have to pull it rearward so that these ears right here fit down in those tabs. And to do that, you're going to have to lift up on this guide block. And it's going to be a little bit fumbly here. I'm going to push it up in place firm, grab it on the other side. Alright, a second ago I pushed it up firmly in that direction, and then it tilted some, and when it tilted, the guide block right here actually came off of these little rails that were there on each side, and so it was just a matter of me sliding it back up in there and tilting it to get it back in position. I'm going to try again here. Some of this just makes it a little bit fumbly or awkward to do it while I'm trying to look through the viewfinder of the video camera, but I'm doing my best, so cut me some slack. So again, I'm going to try to push it up and hold it somewhat in place as I put it down on the rifle and get those lugs started in there. Alright, where you can see they're started. Now I'm going to lift it up a little bit more and then try to push it forward slightly. There. And you see how it popped forward in place. Now, what I want to point out is that this guide block right here, you can see that it's tilted right there. You're going to have to get it lined up properly. You see how lifted there on that edge right there? You're going to have to get it lined up properly so it will go back down in the slot in the receiver. Okay, you see how I pushed it down there with my thumbs on both sides? So now it's fully seated back in position. At this point, with it back in position, you can go ahead and increase the spring force by taking this bar right here and sliding it down and putting it back up under the edge of the J like that for your, this is the position that it's going to be in for operation. Now we'll go through and reinstall this this forward screw here, and then we'll torque it down. Now the Ruger instruction manual does a pretty good job of talking about the removal and reinstallation of the trigger assembly. One thing I wish that they would have done is identify torque value for that front screw. Since they didn't, I'm going to go ahead and torque it to 50 inch-pounds using my little Wheeler torque wrench right here. That should be, I think, sufficiently tight for that location. Another thing I want to point out in the Ruger manual is that Ruger really does a good job, I think, with their manuals, and they talk about how to clean and how to lubricate the trigger assembly. They've got nice photos. They do a good job with their instruction manuals, with their printed materials, and also at their website in advertising and showing the product. So the trigger assembly is now installed. So the next thing we'll do is reinstall the lower receiver. Now, when you install your lower receiver, one of the first things you're going to do is you're going to put your safety selector switch back in. And if you wanted it to be on the right hand side, you would put it on the right hand side like that. Or if you wanted it to be on the left hand side, which would be standard for most right-hand shooters, you would put it in there like that. And you'll end up holding it in the safe position, and all you do is basically just, you know, place the lower receiver assembly, you know, on the upper receiver, which is sitting on the bench. When it's positioned like this, then you can go in and start installing your screws. Alright, remember both of the screws, the one that goes in the front and the one that goes back in the back, are the same length. So I'm going to start out by putting the front one in and getting it started. And I'll go ahead and I'm not going to torque it down, but I'll go ahead and get it to a snug state, slightly snug, just touching. At that point I'll go ahead and fold the stock over like that, and I will install the rear screw here in the back, and I'll do the same thing. I'll go ahead and get it up to a kind of like a snug state. A lot of threads there. Alright, then I'm going to go ahead and give it 50 inch-pounds of torque there, and 50 inch-pounds of torque up here in the front, like that. Now that I've got my lower assembly installed back on the rifle, I'll just check real quick to make sure. It seems like the safety selector is working. It is. I'll check that here in just a second once I install the bolt. So I'll go ahead and install the bolt back into the rifle. Okay, bolt's installed. Go ahead and open the stock all the way up and lock it in place. Alright, so put it over in the safe position. It's cocked, doesn't fire. Put it over there in the fire position. Little trigger pull. Oh, what a nice trigger pull. Recock it. Do it one more time. Yep. Nice, safe, all's good. Well, there you have it. That was disassembly and reassembly of the new Ruger Precision Rifle. It's pretty easy to do. Ruger does a nice job with the video at their website and also their instruction manual, which covers disassembly and reassembly in detail. They do a good job there. Like most of my reviews, I think this is probably going to be a long video or a long review, but I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if you like what you see, please subscribe or hit the like button, and you can also go to my website, gunsumerreports.com, and you can sign up if you want to be notified of reviews as they're released in the future. This particular part of this this video session right here will actually be part of part 4 of my web page review, which talks about disassembly and internal features. Thanks.